Hey, you guys. Welcome back to Rocket City Yardstead. I'm Sarah. I'm so glad you're here. So tonight we are going to make another fall dish. We are going to make pumpkin Alfredo and sausage pasta. The very first thing I need to do here is get my water boiling, and then we can talk ingredients. Now that the water is on to boil, we can talk about our ingredients for this pasta dish. So I am using gluten-free farfalle pasta, bow ties. You can use whatever shape you want. And if you don't need to be gluten-free, just use your favorite brand. Then we have about one large onion chopped up, a few cloves of garlic, a pound of spicy Italian sausage. I like the spicy, but you could use mild if that's your preference. Then we have cinnamon, nutmeg, salt, pepper, Parmesan cheese, and heavy cream. You might notice the pumpkin is missing from our pumpkin pasta. So I have a pumpkin all chopped up into chunks, and it is in my air fryer roasting so that I can turn that into a puree. I actually have a Georgia candy roaster in there, but any kind of pumpkin would do. And if you don't have a homegrown pumpkin and you just want to use canned pureed pumpkin, that works perfectly well in this dish. Just make sure you buy 100% pumpkin and not the pumpkin pie filling. So now that we've discussed all of our ingredients, we can get our sausage on to cook. Got our sausage in the pan and all broken up. I did want to mention here though, my sausage is from a local farmer, and I wish I could remember what kind of pig he raised, but the sausage is very lean. And so I have actually never needed to drain any of the sausage from this pig. But if you're using a more conventional store-bought sausage, you might need to drain some fat. You just don't want your sausage swimming in fat. So just keep an eye on it and use your best judgment would be my advice. So once this is nice and cooked and browned up, we can add our onions and garlic. So we'll come back once we get to that stage. You can see these nice caramelized bits on our sausage. That is what we're looking for. And so I'm going to go ahead and add our onion. I will wait a few minutes on the garlic because garlic cooks faster and tends to burn if you add it at the same time as the onion. The onions are also going to sweat down, and that liquid they release will help pull all of this yumminess off the bottom of our pan. And if for some reason our onions don't give us enough liquid to do that, we can add, you could add a little bit of white wine, you could add a little bit of broth. In this instance, I would probably, just out of the options I have on hand, I would probably just use a little bit of water and let it evaporate off, but use it to clean up the bottom of this pan and get all that flavor up and into our sauce. So I am going to use about a quarter cup of water to help deglaze our pan and get all those flavorful bits up. This will also help our onions soften up a little bit. Our water's boiling, and if you've seen me make gluten-free pasta before, you will know that I like to add a little bit of oil because the brown rice pasta is extra starchy, and it does tend to boil over more than a wheat pasta does. That oil helps a little bit with that. So I'm just going to get my pasta going here. It needs to boil for about 9 minutes. This is ready for us to add in our garlic. I had my pumpkin in a wider bowl, and I need something a bit narrower. But we're just going to use the immersion blender here to puree this all up. And I got my pumpkin puree all made. So making pumpkin puree was not on my to-do list today. I spent a good hour looking for the Georgia candy roaster squash that I had freeze dried last year. It's in mason jars somewhere, and all I needed to do was reconstitute it, and I cannot find it anywhere. So someday I'm just gonna come across some jars somewhere they shouldn't be. At least they're freeze dried and they last a long time. Got our squash added in here, and I am going to add some heavy cream, probably about half a cup. I'm eyeballing this. I might need more. That pumpkin does a lot for the creaminess of this dish, and so you don't have to use as much cream. That's one of the things that's really nice about it. But that pumpkin was a little bit dry for me. I actually had to add some liquid to it, which seems crazy because a lot of times when you puree a squash, you need to drain liquid out of it, but that was not the case for me today. So this might need a little extra cream. I think it's going to. We may be closer to a cup of cream today. This is part of why I cook eyeballing so much of the time, is just because when you're using fresh ingredients, there's so many variables, and what might take a cup of something one time might take more or less a different time. And so much of it is just dependent on the individual ingredients, especially when we're talking things like produce. So you always just kind of want to have an idea of what you're looking for and adjust accordingly. This is looking really nice. So I am going to add some cinnamon. Just going to sprinkle a little bit in. Not too much. Maybe a quarter teaspoon. I don't want an overwhelming flavor of like pumpkin pie, but just a little bit of that flavor goes really nicely in this dish. Now I can add the Parmesan. Shake it up. Probably about a half a cup of Parmesan. Just mix it in, let it melt. As you can see, I bought the shaky cheese variety, but if you prefer fresh grated, you go right ahead. I do think this needs to be thinned a little bit more today. That squash was just really dry. So I think what I am going to do is add, instead of more cream, I am going to open a can of chicken broth and add some chicken broth. That'll just add another depth of flavor to it, but will also help thin it out. And it's already nice and creamy between the pumpkin and the cream, so we don't really need more cream. I love that pop. You have a nice good pop when you open one of your jars. So we are going to start with about half a cup of chicken broth and see if that gets us to a good texture here. I think I'm going to add just a little bit more broth. And we're about there. Once this is all nice and heated through, I will taste for salt and pepper. I didn't want to add salt before this just because the sausage has salt, the Parmesan cheese has salt, and it would be really easy to over salt it before everything is incorporated. I am going to grab a spoon and give this a taste. Needs just a little bit of salt, but not very much at all. If I had added salt earlier, I definitely would have oversalted. And just a crack of black pepper. It doesn't really need very much because that sausage is really well seasoned, but depending on your sausage, you might need more flavoring. So just adjust accordingly to your own tastes. I think this is ready to add our pasta. And anytime you're working with gluten-free noodles, they really like to clump up. Sometimes wheat pasta does that, but I find not quite as bad. Get our noodles all mixed in here. Here you have it, pumpkin and sausage Alfredo. I'm really looking forward to digging into this. So here we have it, you guys. A nice fall dinner. Really quick if you use already pureed pumpkin, if you got it in your freezer, if you just want to buy a can. It's so good. It tastes of fall. A nice little change from maybe a more traditional pasta. I'm going to take a bite here. Haven't had a taste once the pasta went in. So good. Give it a try, you guys. Let me know what you think. So thanks for hanging out with me tonight. I hope you have a wonderful day, and I will see you next time. Bye.